Hello friends, welcome to Oracle Concept video series. In this video, we'll try to understand what is a recursive subquery factoring in Oracle. So before that, let us understand what is a recursion in programming. So recursion is a very simple concept in programming where a function will call itself is called a recursive function or a method will call itself. See, the main advantage of recursion is we can execute the same functionality multiple times in a loop. Okay, that is the concept of recursion. The best example to understand the concept of recursion is the program that computes the factorial. So here is a very simple C program that computes the factorial of the given input number. So if you see here, we are just taking the input from console. So we are just giving an input to compute the factorial number, and that input we are passing as an input to the function called fact. So here is the function that computes the factorial of the given input number. If you see clearly, the function calls itself by subtracting 1 from the input number. So if you are passing 5, it will just keep on calling the same function by subtracting 1 from the input number, and this will continue till it reaches n equal to 1. So what will happen is that if I am passing 5 as an input, it will keep on calling the function by subtracting 1 in that number till the number reaches 5. So by that way, it will compute 5 multiplied by 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and finally all these numbers will be multiplied and the factorial output will be returned. So this is the concept of recursion in the programming. So in this video, we are going to understand how to implement a similar recursion in SQL. Okay, before understanding a recursion concept in SQL, let us understand what is a with class in SQL. So with class is a very simple concept in SQL where you can store a result of a query with a name, and with that name you can access in the main query. For example, here is a result of the select statement that is stored with a name called rs, and from your actual query or from your main query you can read the result as if it is a table. So this is the with class. See, the main advantage of with class is that you can pre-compute some information and that can be used any number of time in your actual query. It's not necessary that you have to use only one result set. You can have any number of computed result set. For example, here is another example where I'm using 3 result sets. Okay, so which I'm using in my main class. So that is the main advantage of with class. So in a very simple terms, if I want to say, you can pre-compute some information and that can be referred any number of times inside your main SQL as if it is like a table data. And one more thing, the scope of the with class is only till the completion of your SQL only. It will not be available once the SQL execution is completed. Okay, with this we'll start understanding what is a recursive function or recursive subquery in Oracle. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write and show you a simple query using a recursive subquery to print numbers from 1 to 5. Then I will show you what are all the components of that query. Then I will explain you how that recursive query works. Fine. Now let us see how to write a query using this recursive subquery functionality to print numbers from 1 to 5. Okay, I'm using with class. I'm giving a name as t. I will explain what is this n. N is nothing but alias. Probably I will explain bit later. So I'm saying select one from dual, union all, select n plus 1 from t, where n less than 5. Okay, now I'm saying select star from t. Okay, so this is the implementation of using a recursive SQL to print number from 1 to 5. Now let me explain what are all the components of the recursive query. See, 5 key things you should understand with respect to this recursive query. Okay, the first key thing is the recursive subquery will have 2 SQL part. One SQL part is called anchor member and another SQL part is called recursive member, and both these SQL parts are separated by a keyword union all. Okay, so this is the first point. The second point is that the recursive member must appear before the the anchor member must appear before the recursive member, and it should not refer to the name of the query. For example, T is the name of the query. It should not refer the query name. The third point is that the recursive member, okay, one more thing, the anchor member is the one which produces the initial rows for your result set. Fine. And it will get executed only once. It will not execute more than once. The next thing is the recursive member must follow the anchor member, and it should refer the query name. So T is the query name, so that's why we are referring here, and it should refer the query name only once. Okay. Another very important point is that the recursive member is going to get executed again and again till the recursive member produces no result. So this is the portion of SQL which keep on getting executed again and again. The next point is that the number of columns you are mentioning in your anchor class or anchor SQL and the recursive SQL should match. For example, if you have like 3 columns selected in your anchor SQL, then you should have 3 columns in your recursive SQL also. The last point is that you should mention the alias. If you are not using a recursive subquery, then alias is not mandatory. But if you are trying to implement a recursive subquery, then alias is mandatory. So the number of alias you are mentioning here should match with the number of columns you are selecting in both anchor and your recursive member. So these are the 5 key points you should remember. So here is the documentation from Oracle. In fact, the same content I just restructured and I given you as 5 key points to be remembered. Probably what you can do is you can just pause this video for a few minutes, just read through this, and then you can continue on how the query gets actually executed to produce the result from 1 to 5. Fine. Now let's see how the query actually gets executed. As I mentioned, the anchor member will get executed only once and it produces the initial result, right? So this will execute once and this produces the result like 1. So the name of this result will be T, because that is what the query name T. Okay. So this have a column name and that is what is N. You can say that the column name is N. So this is your something like your temporary output, and this output will be actually added to your overall output. Think that this is your final output and this is the output what the query is producing. I mean the T. Okay. So from now on, once the initial rows are produced, from now on only the recursive member is going to get executed till the recursive member is not able to produce any more rows. Fine. Now let's execute the second portion of the query, that is the recursive member. So it says that select n plus 1 from T. So at this point T is having value as 1. So what will happen? Select 1 plus 1 from T where 1 less than 5. So what will happen? 1 plus 1 will produce 2. So and that 2 will be added to your final output. Already 1 is there. Now 2 will be added back. Now your query name, that is T, is having 2. So it will check 2 less than 5. That is your recursive query will get executed. 2 less than 5. Yes, condition is true. So what will happen? 2 plus 1. That will result in 3. So now this 3 will be again added back to your final result. Now again the recursive member will get executed. So select n plus 1 from T where 3 less than 5. So condition is satisfied. So n plus 1, what will happen? N is 3. So n plus 1 will become 4. So now again 4 will be added to your final result. Now your T is 4. So it will again your recursive member will get executed. So 4 less than 5. So n is 4. So 4 plus 1. So what will happen? Again the T will be overwritten with 5. The 5 will be added to your final result. Now again your recursive member will try to get executed. Select 5 plus 1 from T where 5 less than 5. Right? So at this point the condition will not get satisfied. So your recursive member will not be able to produce any more rows. Then it will come out and it just print 1 till 5. So this is how the recursive function will get executed and returns the result. Okay. Now let me show you a slightly modified version of the same query. So in the previous query, we have just used only one column. So in this query, I am using two columns. So I'm just naming it like N1 and N2. So in the first column the logic is exactly similar as what we have seen. In the second column, I'm just using a slightly concatenated values just to produce this pyramid structure of data. So what happens is that in every recursive execution, the value will keep on getting appended to the previous value. Probably you can take this query, try by yourself, try understanding how this query works exactly the same way how I have shown you in the previous query. If you want any questions to be answered, you can post it in the comment section or you can drop to this mail ID. But before that, you can just browse through all the subscriber comments, reply questions, or all these questions, all these interview questions, because most of the questions are already answered. In case if you are not able to find your question here, please write back to me and I'll be happy to record and post a new video. I hope you would have learned something new today. If yes, please like this video, subscribe and stay tuned for new feature videos, interview question, SQL practical questions, concept videos and performance tuning videos. Thanks a lot for watching this video.